What are you bringing to the bedroom?
Yeah.
Are you coming from a wounded place? Are you there to have your ego validated? Or are you there to honor the other person and open up and have true intimacy? But in our modern worlds, we're so disconnected from our ability to have intimacy or fully see another person. We're even disconnected from ourselves. So how can we truly connect with someone on a really deep level?
Welcome to the Psychology Podcast, a platform where we discuss the mental, physical, and emotional health of your world. Welcome to where mind meets body. With your host, Kristen McAdams.
The Psychology Podcast, y'all. I'm your host, Kristen McAdams. We are here to have constructive conversation to get you thinking about things in a different way. Interesting topics, interesting people. Talking about the topics that they specialize in, and we hope that you get something valuable and productive from this episode. We are in the studio today with Dominique D'Vita of Yes Tantra. She is a tantric sex coach, and she has done phenomenal work with clients and couples of all ages, from all different backgrounds, teaching people how to connect better on a deeper level with a way more interesting way of reaching that level of connection. I think that sexual health is a huge aspect of mental health, and that's why we invited Dominique on the show. I think that this conversation is not had enough. And I met her, interestingly enough, through a mutual friend of mine that I went to grad school with, who is a wonderful human being. Dominique, please tell our listeners what all the magic that you do. This woman's magic, y'all.
It can be a taboo topic. So some places there's resistance, but just remember, everyone, if it wasn't for sex, none of us would be here.
That's a valid point. Really good point. And just to highlight the connection between the body like that, right? Like a lot of people, I think, we think of it as so separate, right? Like we think of the sex and sexuality and sex as a separate act, or like our being in our sexuality is just, it's like siloed. It's like this separate thing.
The way we do one thing is the way we do everything. It's all connected, and it's energy. Our sexual energy is our life force energy, and martial arts and other things in Eastern medicine, it'll be referred to as your chi energy. It's connected to your vitality. It's also connected to your creativity. It's the energy you were created from. Yeah. Whenever we disconnect from this energy, we're truly disconnecting from an incredible power source that we have. And our hearts, that energy of love, is incredibly powerful too, to create amazing changes in our lives. But in our society, we've been conditioned to operate from fear. Tantra helps you to embrace these aspects of ourselves instead of shaming them or making them wrong.
I feel like the root of fear is like people are so scared to connect to other people, even just like, whether it be eye contact or social anxiety or just some of the basic, we say like sex is taboo, but what's popular is, the social anxiety piece. Oh, I can't connect, or I walk into a room full of people and I don't know how to take up space in that room or be in that room or just be in even the presence of other people. And I can't even imagine what your work must look with everybody just being even more disconnected, even more separated, even more like in just a state of struggle, being able to have conversations with other people, never mind, let alone having sex with other people. And we have deteriorated the sexual experience in terms of having it be a real connection. Like it doesn't have to be a long-term committed connection, right? But it can be a real connection.
Even if it's a one-time experience, it can still be a very deep, real connection based on what your intention is and what the energies are, what you're bringing.
Yeah.
What you're bringing. They say about what are you bringing to the table? What are you bringing to the bedroom? Yeah. Are you coming from a wounded place? Are you there to have your ego validated? Or are you there to honor the other person and open up and have true intimacy? But in our modern worlds, we're so disconnected from our ability to have intimacy or fully see another person. We're even disconnected from ourselves. So how can we truly connect with someone on a really deep level? And one thing to add on to that is that in our world, so many people are looking for a soulmate type relationship, but we have not been taught how to have soulful sex. And Tantra is literally making love to the other person's soul.
I've been thinking about that lately. I've been thinking about how this idea of if it's broken, throw it away and replace it. So I feel like people have been doing that with relationships. And we could talk a little bit about in a threshold sexual, if depending on how deep you want to go with personal experiences, right? I've been divorced. I know what it's like to not know how to be in a connected, loving relationship in that way. But I also find that there's this pressure that we put on one another to adhere to some social standard of like right or wrong or good or bad, that, and I think it is rooted in our fear. I think it's rooted in this, if you can't be good and show up for me in the way that I think that you should show up for me, then I can't, I have to leave you and find somebody else. There's no like nurturance in these relationships. And even just in that experience, right? Like it could be a one night stand, but why can't that be meaningful also? Like, why does it have to be like, oh no, I have no feelings. I don't have feelings about that. I don't have a connection to that. It's, why wouldn't you want to be connected to the experiences that you have in your own life? And why wouldn't you want to invest in nurturing relationships and not throw it out just because somebody made a mistake or they're broken or they're going through a hard time or they're going through something? And I feel like you must see that a lot in your work, right? Like couples specifically that are like struggling, it just as individuals, and that individual struggle showing up in the context of a connected relationship.
Yes, because we can only meet another person's emotions as deeply as we met our own. And so often we're so disconnected from ourselves.
Yeah.
And so we're not able to connect deeply with another. We don't show compassion the majority of time for ourselves. So how can we be there for someone else? Right. A lot of times in society, you'll see relationships are really about we are expecting the other to do for us what we're not willing to do. I want you to make me feel loved. I want to feel beautiful because you tell me I'm beautiful. And instead of, we don't do that for ourselves. So if we're not resourced and we're not already feeling that love for ourselves, and we already don't know that we're enough, and we're just seeking validation outside from someone else, and we're approaching relationships from a place of scarcity and lack, and then it's that neediness. You're almost a vampire to that relationship. And you're putting a lot on the other person. The Hollywood line of "you complete me" has done us a big disservice because no one completes you. You need to come into a relationship whole and complete. Yes, we will have had our challenges and our past traumas and things that we're working through, but we need to be aware of them. You're a whole person and you need to enter it as a whole person. Yeah. Being aware of your shit that you're also bringing into it and have some sense of accountability. So there's different ways that can go too. It's yes, we need to nurture relationships. Yes. But we also don't need to be the person to rescue everyone either.
Right.
That is a powerful lesson I had to learn. And I'm also divorced. So I've experienced the spectrum of very unhealthy, toxic relationships, approaching sex based on my ego, all the way to the other end of the range of experiences. It just depends on what we're open to and where we are in that point in our lives. When I share this, it's from a place of I've been there and I've faced a lot of the struggles that my clients and most people in the world are facing, and just having empathy and compassion and saying, hey, there's a better way. There's some things that I've learned along the way, and I just want to share that with you. So maybe you don't have to continue to suffer either.
I feel like that's so at the core of what we need to. I feel like everybody keeps looking for the solution to these problems that we're having, like mental health challenges increasing over the course of time, and people internalizing it as something's wrong with me, or I have some sort of imbalance, or some sort of, I have low serotonin, so I can't connect to you, right? Because I'm depressed or I'm anxious or and these things. And it is that healing piece, right? If we have that healing and that internal perspective of, okay, what are my fears? What am I actually coming up against? What are the fears that I'm actually facing when I stand and look at another person? What's coming up for me, right? I love the divorce example because I look back at some of my past relationships and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I behaved that way.
Same.
I can't believe I was that person. And you don't know what you don't know at the time, right? You only can work with where you're at. I've totally been that empowered feminist version of myself that's screw the men and whatever, I don't know, whatever sort of version of me existed before that was like very in my masculine energy, very putting walls up, putting boundaries up. Boundaries. They weren't boundaries. They were It was just a shitty attitude. And I look back at some of the things that I put people through, and I do have compassion for that part of myself, because that part of me, that version of me wasn't in touch, didn't know what they had to heal, didn't know that they were scared even. And I look at what it did to the relationships, and the other people in the relationships didn't know either. These guys didn't know either what was going on for them. And it's almost like rewarding to look back now and just be like, wow, and just wonder what I don't know now. To just be like, shit, what do I not know now? That can be overwhelming too.
But it's just a constant journey. We're constantly evolving. If we're not growing, then we're dying.
Yeah.
And so if we're constantly evolving and we have a growth mindset and we just remain curious,
yes,
then it's almost like you're in a video game and you just keep leveling up and leveling up. And yeah, on some of the levels when you're in the beginner phase, you can look back and be like, oh my gosh, I just didn't know this and I didn't know how to get through this stuff in life. But instead of feeling bad or feeling like we don't have enough, just be like, oh, celebrate how far we've come on the journey.
Yes.
And that we're just curious. At least we're curious and we don't have a fixed mindset. And we're not even open to exploring or saying, oh, is there a better way that I can be? Or is there something more that I can experience in my lifetime? What else then is possible for me to experience? And one of my favorite quotes that I used to really identify with in my most toxic phases of dating so far. I could be in a toxic phase now and not know it. Right. It's just all, but it is much better. And I just continue to be better than I was in my past version of me. But this quote by Marilyn Monroe, which was, if you can't handle me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best.
Yep.
When I was younger and it was Miss Hot Thing and I was dating someone, and if I was really being activated, like my triggers and my childhood wounds were coming up, which I wasn't aware of that was happening at the time.
Right.
And I would lash out at the person that I was with. Then my excuse would be, well, if you can't handle me when I'm like, basically I knew deep down I was acting really shitty.
Yeah.
If you can't handle this, then you don't need to deserve me when everything's all amazing.
Right.
As I started doing my work and showing up for myself, I was like, oh, that's a really messed up perspective to relationships. I just don't get to dump all my shit on you just because there's other amazing parts of me.
Yeah.
Like I can't be destructive towards our relationship and towards you. I need to be accountable. It doesn't give me a free pass for me to be a jerk.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's almost looked at as like sassy. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you're fierce, or you're sassy or glamorous. Or I totally did that in my divorce phase. I totally did that. I was like, oh, like all these like memes that I would put up that people would just like applaud because they were funny and they were sassy and they were quirky and oh, she's a bad bitch. And I was like, no, I was scared and alone and didn't know how to connect to people, didn't know how to relate to anybody, and didn't know how to not demand things from my partner. What, you got something to say over there? Oh, my producer is also my partner now, so he knows all of these stories about how I came to
I don't have anything to say. We're fine.
I would love to hear what you have to say about this topic.
No, we're good. We're good.
Let's jump over to the experience section, because I want to talk a little bit about like how people come into that type of mindset and in these experiences around what we think when we think of sex and how we learn that, like what kind of constructs, like much like divorce, right? There's such a construct around that in so many ways, whether you think you're like a cougar or, you know, a divorcee or whatever. There's all these stereotypes that exist, but there's also so many stereotypes around sex, right? So I want to dive into the threshold segment about experiences and coming into our education experience or awareness of sex. How did you... like the birds and the bees talk, right? That's like the quintessential, like stereotypical, how did you learn about the birds and the bees? And I think a lot of people would say like elementary school or like middle school health class or something random like that, which to me sounds terrible. That sounds like the absolute worst place to learn about sex or sexual health or sex education or anything like that. So how do you talk about that in your coaching, or do you like, what is your personal experience in terms of A, learning about sex, but then B, like coming into becoming a sex coach?
Whenever I work with clients, I have some questionnaires that I share with them. And one of them is I ask them what kind of education they got and what were their parents' views on sex. Were their parents really open about it or anything? Because it will be really telling as I'm guiding them as to what messaging did they get in their subconscious mind and their programming based on the environment where they grew up with their caregivers. Most of us, if you think back to probably like middle school, high school, where we get a sex education, or I don't know how much you would call it education, but the talk or whatever.
Yeah.
Usually it's based on either having fear, don't get an STD, and they show you these very graphic images of people that have STDs, or don't get pregnant, or just to shame, or just be abstinent.
Yep.
And don't have sex, which is really wild because when you think about past generations, even 100 years ago, a lot of times people were getting married at 15 because we're the only species that past the point where we could be able to have sex that we're supposed to be holding off. Like our hormones are literally raging.
That's such a good point. I didn't even think about that.
I understand. Yeah. And I understand that we don't really have the maturity with all the things that can come along with sex, that waiting is a great idea. However, physiologically, our biology, our hormones, we're ready to go. Like our bodies are like, yes, let's do this. And then we have the world around us being, no, don't you dare, don't you dare. Even if we could talk to teenagers and say, how can you pleasure yourself and have a self-love ritual and feel amazing pleasure for yourself and connect to your body and not have them feel shame about it? Because so many of my clients will even say, when I was self-pleasuring, then I feel a lot of guilt about it, or I would feel shame about it. And I still will have some guilt or shame about that now because no one really talked to them about it. I remember joking with my teenage daughters when their friends would be around sometimes, and I would just say something like, you know that 80% of adults masturbate? And they would just sit there, and I was like, and the other 20%, they're liars. And I would just joke about it.
Yeah.
Just as a way to give them permission of, okay.
Yep. We're learning about producer Mike's sex education. How did you learn about it? You remember? Do you know how you learned about the birds and the bees? Do you remember?
I don't. I did sex education in high school.
Did you put a condom on a banana or some shit?
No, they never did the condom on the banana thing. But they were like, "Oh my God, hey, sex! Be careful, it's dangerous."
Right?
Like I remember hearing, "It's dangerous. Be careful." But
and you're like, what does that mean?
I'm also in my 40s. That was the sex education we got.
I don't know how it's any different now. Like, I don't know if I can't even imagine. That's such a good point. Like, I remember having a really high sex drive, and I read that book, Come As You Are, and like they talk about the different sex drives, right? They talk about some people having more or less sex drives, or some people having, they refer to it as like gas and brakes. Some people have all gas and no brakes. Some people have no gas and all brakes, right? Or like whatever combination of that very overgeneralized, simplistic way of describing a sex drive. But I remember being younger and just like having a super hardcore sex drive. I always had a hardcore sex drive. Sorry if that's TMI, but you know what? No, I'm not sorry. I'm going to talk about it because we don't talk about those things, right? Especially for mental health therapists, right? It's hard for us because you can't really be like in your sexuality or be a sexual being unless you're a sex therapist, right? It's, oh, if you've trained and you're a sex therapist and that's what you do for a living, like then you can be in your sexuality. But even training for mental health therapists is like the one rule is don't sleep with your clients. Yes, thank you. I know not to sleep with thank you. That's like very clearly obvious. But as a human or a professional outside of your profession, outside of the work that you do, it's like you're still a human. And I feel like that's a very similar dichotomy with like kids, like you're saying, right? Like they used to get married at 15, right? We live longer now and we have that shut down. And I remember one thing that my mom said, I think the only thing she ever said to me about sex was, don't be the village pump. And I was like, what does that mean?
Wow.
Yeah, that's the one thing that stands out that I remember coming from her. And as somebody who had a high sex drive, and that was like friends with the boys, like I wasn't necessarily like sexually attracted to all the boys, but I was friends with the boys and I had a high drive and I had that message coming from my mom. And that set me up for disaster, like long-term in relationships. Now, I think because the conversations change, which it's changing. I don't think it has changed. I think it's changing, which I think is great. But I think that, to your point, that conversation or even just joking around or talking about it in that way, in an approachable, relatable way to kids or teenagers is great because there's no conversation for them to have at that age that I'm aware of that sounds constructive or productive outside of some of the things that I've heard you say just in us meeting one-on-one or having a conversation today. So I think if we ask the kids nowadays, I wonder what the answer would be around how did you hear about sex for the first time?
Yeah. And it's, even if you say, I'm not supposed to talk about my sex life as a therapist, it's a big part of who we are. So you're just literally cutting off such a big aspect of who we are as human beings. And I think that's a big message we get in our society is all of you is welcome here, but the sexual part of you is not welcome. And if you're trying to bring that into spaces, like shame on you, and there's a lot of shaming, like even the advice that you got, the talk you got from your mother was shaming. My mother was very much, oh my gosh, you're going to love sex. Let me know when you're ready to have it. And I had fear because I was like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be the school slut, because my mom gave me full permission to do whatever. And I had the opposite impact on me because I was like, I have to monitor myself with this, because she was just like, oh, just let me know and we'll get you on the pill. And I love sex. Your dad loves sex. You're going to love it.
Two very different and like specific
conversation. But then if you're not rebelling against something, like whenever you make something, you're like, you cannot do this.
Yep.
How much does that make the teenager or whatever more tempted to do it? If you just educate about it and let them make an informed decision, that's so much better. And why do we have so much shame about this thing that everyone does, unless you've taken a vow of celibacy? Majority of people in our world have sex. If it wasn't for sex, again, you wouldn't be here. Your parents had sex, unless you're in vitro, but that's a very small percentage of our society, right? Majority of people are here because of sex. So it's really wild to me that we don't want to talk about it. We want to act like it doesn't happen. It's such a taboo topic.
Or we want to make it like conditional.
I get warnings. Yeah. And I get warnings all the time, like from Instagram. They recently shut down my Tantra page and I had 30,000 followers, and they'll tell me this doesn't meet community guidelines. And I'm very appropriate in how I speak about things. And I had one of my replies back was like, if it wasn't for sex, you wouldn't have an Instagram community. None of us would be here.
But why can like Cardi B make a song called WAP, but you can't have a constructive conversation about sex on Instagram? You can, like, that's insane to me. I don't understand that at all. Right?
It's a really wild thing.
I feel like probably a lot of what I internalized growing up, outside of that one message that I remember my mom saying, was from like music, right? So I think even some of like back then, I grew up, I was a teenager in the early 2000s. So 90s or 2000s, not to date me, but also not ashamed of my age at all. I actually am happy to be getting older. A lot of that music back then, there were messages in that music, which I wish now that in retrospect, I had looked up some like pop culture examples. Some of the messages I think were relatively healthy to some degree, which is strange. But now you hear, like, when I listen to music nowadays, it just, sex sounds so conditional and so like dissociated. And I don't hear any music that I would play in a sexual experience, right?
I have a really good Spotify playlist of a few, but you know what, the work that I do, I say it's like Marvin Gaye, the sexual healing he would sing about.
Yeah.
And not a lot of music that now, for sure.
There has to be a huge difference between the sound of the music too and what actually excites you versus the lyrics in the music. I'm sure that would make a huge difference. See what turns you on. I picked one article that I thought was interesting because it made a comparison between Tantra and CBT, which I was like, that's an odd comparison to make. But I do want to talk about that. And Dominique, please explain to us what Tantra is. It's such a large question, and I know it's probably hundreds of years of history involved with the topic itself. But I would like to hear from you as an expert. How do you describe to your clients what Tantra is?
Yeah. Tantra practices go back over 5,000 years ago. And the word Tantra means weaving or looming, like bringing things together. And what's really beautiful about it to me is it does bring a lot of different modalities and things together, really for your greatest expansion and enlightenment. The intent of Tantra is not even anything about sex. It had nothing to do with about sex or sexuality. It's all about having elevated consciousness. If you think of, there's some Buddhist lineages of Tantra, and you think of a Buddhist monk meditating on the side of a mountain for hours and hours at a time. He's really wanting to get like the chakras or the energy centers open and open up the crown chakra and the third eye chakra to have this enlightenment, to get in these really Zen elevated states. So they would do things like visualization, mantras, mudras, which are these hand gestures and things that we can do, all these different chanting, all of these things in meditation for a long time, and then breath work. And all of these things help to open up our energy centers and help us really have this expanded consciousness so we can really get to know who we are from the inside, the status symbols. Let me buy this. Let me have the amazing house and all that. And then it's going to look like I have it all together. But then we can find out we still feel in a funk or things don't feel right because we're trying to fix what's going on in here by adjusting everything around us. But it really works the other way around. So Tantra helps you with your inner world, your inner landscape. It's like the inner gym.
Yep.
And then working with these energies so you can have expanded enlightenment and realize how powerful you are. That you can realize the power, the creative energy, the life force energy flowing within you and know how to channel that and focus it. Now, if someone has meditated for hours at a time, the byproduct of that is they're going to be a much better lover because they're able to be dropped in and fully present. When I recommend meditative practices to my clients, a male that is able to meditate longer will also last longer in bed. And then for females, the longer they can stay in a meditative state, the more easy it is going to be for them orgasmic. Because your brain is your largest sex organ. Often we get distracted from our pleasure and our monkey mind is like jumping around.
Yep.
And we're not really fully present in the moment. And what I love about Tantra, it helps you use the five senses to drop down into our bodies because in our modern world, we operate from the neck up. And it's, what are your grades? SAT. Okay, now what schools did you go to? What is your degree? What is your income? What do you do for a living? And we just operate from what we can do and the outputs that we can have.
They're like conditions, right?
We're human beings, not human doings.
Right.
But we can really be present with ourselves and really drop into all the buried treasure that's right here within us. We realize we don't need as much of this external.
Right.
And we're getting more tapped into, more self-aware. And we start to have more love for ourselves, more compassion for ourselves, and we're able to do that for ourselves. We can more easily do that for another. So we have better relationships.
Yeah.
And so the byproduct of Tantra is that you can become a really great lover. And then if you know how to circulate and have that dance of energy, we have these energy centers in our bodies, these chakras that are talked about in Law and Tantra. And whenever we know how to even move our energy with our breath and with visualization and do that with a lover and have an energy exchange, because sex is just S, sacred, E, energy, X exchange. We're having an energy exchange and we can have this beautiful flow and this beautiful dance of our arousal energy and of our heart and our love energy with that person.
Right.
And we can have this amazing intimacy and connection. And when we're able to do that, we're having better experiences and we're experiencing a better lover. We're able to be a better lover, but we're not taught that in our world. We're taught how to have egoic, superficial, shallow sex. And then we wonder, why am I not having a soulmate? Because you don't know how to do soul mating. All you know how to do is have shallow experiences.
Right.
And then your relationships are going to be shallow. They're being created from those experiences. You don't know how to go into the deep end or have any depth.
Right. I feel, and it's like that connection to yourself too. I see that so frequently in the work that I do with my clients is just that they a lot of times they want an answer, right? Like, how do I fix this thing? How do I get it? And it's this external condition, right? We see that with medication, or we see that with some of the tools or things that people think that they need to be okay. Or they'll make jokes about it, like millennials, like taking on plants as pets, right? Like all of these external things. And we have all these conditions that we place on ourselves for who we need to be and how we need to think. And really just not getting that connection, right? Even that like connection to yourself. Because I feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, right? You have to be able to connect to yourself to connect to another human, right? Like you have to be able to be in your body, be in your senses, right? Like you just described, to connect to another human. And then again, going back to that like initial conversation, like that has to open up the door for people to be more intentional with when they choose to engage sexually, like who they choose to engage with. It's going to probably dissipate some of the other distractions that we involve with those choices, right? Some of the other, I don't even know what a good example would be, I guess, money and sugar daddies, or like just like something like that, something super basic, right? Something super conditional. I think if you have that connection and awareness with yourself and that person like you're describing, all of those other things don't matter anymore, right? Like all of those other conditions aren't even a factor.
Yeah, they don't really appeal to you, because whenever you're able to have an amazing love with yourself and you know how to have epic like self-pleasure rituals, things like that, then you're not wanting to have that with someone else, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you're not seeking that out.
Right.
One of my coworkers, their sister had been married like 6 times by the time she was 50. But she didn't believe in having premarital sex. So whenever she had the hots for somebody, it was like, oh, let's get married. Another person that their needs aren't being met. And so they're rushing along things in a relationship so they can feel pleasure. But if anyone deserves to enjoy your body, it's you. Right. And you are your longest lasting relationship from your first breath to your last breath. Please yourself. Give yourself pleasure. And when you know how to connect to your body that way, again, you're going to be a better lover. You're going to be able to communicate with your lover what turns you on, because you're going to know and understand your body better. And I just want to think about it like this. If you went grocery shopping and you hadn't eaten in days or weeks, I mean, how much junk do you think you would throw in your cart? And we would literally do that with sex partners, because we don't resource ourselves and we're so turned on and so needy that we just like, we'll throw anything in our basket. Right. And then we're later like, oh man, that definitely had red flags all over it. But because we won't do this for ourselves, if we always need that constant validation, that was for me. I was like Samantha on Sex and the City before Tantra, and I needed my ego validated. Yep. And I liked when men desired me, and that was my value. Yep. And when I stopped needing that and I realized, oh, I'm whole and complete and I'm amazing on my own. I don't need someone else to validate me. I don't even need to be in a relationship. As long as I'm focusing on that relationship I have with myself, that was such a game changer. And I stopped settling for things that were not serving me.
Probably pretty easily too.
Yeah. Once you've had really amazing experiences too, you don't want to settle for the mediocre stuff or the toxic things. It's just, oh, okay, yeah, I could be in a relationship, but with what? Like, how are a lot of people relating in our modern world?
Yeah.
I've literally been celibate for a year now.
That's bad.
If you can't meet the bar of where I am, like, I know how to rock my own world.
Yeah.
And if you're just going to bring me drama, or you just want me to rescue you, or I just cannot anymore. I just like, it's just wasting my life force energy.
All of the things, right?
Yeah,
There's so many things that come into those relationships that
I'm just like, I'm good on that.
Yeah.
I'm good. I wish I would have figured that out sooner, because I was prioritizing relationships for other people that I was really wasting a lot of my time and energy. Now, did I learn certain things from experiences? Can I have gratitude for certain things? Yes. But when I look at it, I'm like, wow, where would I have been in my life if I would not have been constantly chasing that thing? But we get told this through Disney movies and other stories of the man, have your Prince Charming, you need your happily ever after.
And then we argue the wrong points about
just not true.
those. Like the point that they argue about that is also the wrong point. They're like, I don't need no man. And it's okay, yeah, sure, you don't, but that's not the point, right? What you're describing is something so much more valuable and so much deeper and so much more experiential. As far as we know, if we only live this life, right? Like, why not have amazing experiences? And it's so interesting because this research article, when it compares it to CBT, it talks about the cognitive distortions. And I think that's a lot of what comes up is those cognitive distortions, the overgeneralization, right? The black and white thinking. And it parallels Tantra. Like I in no way, shape or form think that CBT is anywhere even close to studying Tantra. But they give the example of the thought that like you always screw things up. If you have that subconscious thought of I always screw things up, or I need somebody else, or coming from that scarcity place, coming from that place of being like self-doubt or unseen scarcity in yourself, like you're not going to put that boundary up the way that you did, right? You're not going to say, yeah, I'm only going to accept exactly what I want in this scenario, right? I'm only going to accept enriching really healthy, connected experiences because you're not identifying that thing.
Other thing is, a lot of us, we think that we're broken. We're coming from a place of thinking we're broken, that we're not enough. Instead of what Tantra helps you realize is how amazing you are, and to have a lot of self-love. Like Pink Tantra focuses on your heart chakra and self-love. Your heart chakra connects you with the world around you. It connects your upper and lower chakras as well. And I want to go back real quick to what you said about not needing a man. Men are amazing.
Yeah.
So my grandmother back in the day, my grandmother was born in 1913. My mom had me later in life. And my grandmother would say, oh, men are the best opposite sex that we have. Men are amazing. And I love coaching men and working with men. I'm super passionate about that. And even the work that I do with men is support of feminine. Yeah. And it's also in support of women. Men are amazing. And I'm not saying I don't need a man. I'm saying I don't need a toxic relationship, and I am not going to settle for that.
Huge
and I need someone who, they don't need to be perfect, but that they're have a growth mindset, that they're doing their work, that they are self-aware.
Yeah.
I've repeated a lot of the unhealthy patterns for a while. And this year on Halloween, I will be 55. I was born in 1968. So for me, I'm just like, I don't know, if it's not something that is really going to enhance things in my life, like I would rather make good memories with my daughters, because for a lot of times I had my daughters when they were young. When I was young, and I was a really young, immature mom. I was an emotionally immature mother. And now I'm just like, all right, what am I doing now I would rather go on a vacation with my daughters.
You choose a different experience.
And create some happy memories with them. I don't always just think I need some dude. And I have men that have money. They're like, hey, do you want to travel here? Do you want to travel there? No, I don't want to just do something for the hookup or interests me.
That's like the culture nowadays too. It's like the hookup culture.
And I've played plenty of hookups. That's why I'm a sex coach. I have you to be a sexpert. To be an expert, I'm a sexpert. You have to have 10,000 hours in the field. I've done my field research.
I can't even imagine the stories you've heard. It's just that's what it is nowadays, is like the hookup culture. It's you get that quick dopamine boost from just, hey, look, I hooked up with this girl, or I hooked up with this guy, and but that's all it was. It was just one night. So it's just baffling to hear that coming from, it's life-changing to hear that coming from somebody like you who has that experience.
Yeah. Now, when I was Samantha on Sex and the City, I was that.
I love that analogy too, because I used to relate to her.
I was that because my ego needed to be validated. I would dated celebrities. I would hook up with celebrities. Yeah. It's like I was having a good time. I was dating models and stuff. I was like, oh. And I was very much in my masculine energy, and I was approaching sex from a masculine way. Yep. And I was just going with my ego and bragging about who I've been with. Like we can all, and I don't want to say that there's toxic masculinity. We all are a balance of masculine and feminine energy, and Tantra helps you to understand that.
Love that.
Males are more of a balance than females because they're the XY chromosome. Mm-hmm. And what we can do is, I was in my unhealthy masculine. I was hyper masculine.
Oh yeah, been there.
No one is going to mess with me, and I'm being real tough because I was really afraid, like what you were sharing earlier.
Oh yeah.
And I was very guarded. Yep. And I thought my feminine energy, and I thought vulnerability, I thought those things were my weakness. I've learned that those two things are actually my superpowers.
Yep.
But when I was in my unhealthy masculine, which I can be in my unhealthy feminine, but I was overly masculine and I was in the unhealthy aspect, I was very much in my ego and hookup. And are you DTF? Let's go. What tests have you had? I would interview people. Okay.
Yeah. Show me your papers.
Where's your lab work? I got to see the results.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I think that's like a little bit of where that's where the conversation has gone now. They're like, women are like, oh, I can sleep around and sleep with whoever I want as long as it's safe and it's okay. Sure. But you're in that, right? You're in that masculine energy. You're in that quote unquote boundaried energy just because you're demanding the papers and you're having safe sex, but you're still not really grasping the concept of being guarded, right? And then having guarded sex or being in your head about that, right? Being even in the sexual experience yourself. I can't imagine that anybody that's show me your papers is like not in their head or in some sort of performative state, right? When they're,
it was very performative. It was
Yes.
performative. It was my ego.
Yeah.
My ego was completely running the show. Man, I was a hot mess. I'm not. So when I share with people and I help people, it's always from a place of, hey,
I get
I've been there, done that. I could write some books about it.
Yep.
Let me tell you now the way I experience casual sex, if we want to, if that's what we choose that we want to do, we shouldn't be shamed for these things, but we just have to be aware of. And so then even when I have had casual experiences with sex, it's like, what is that person like? Let me take some time and see.
Yeah.
And would I want to be like that person? Because one thing that we do not pay attention to is our biology, from our DNA, from all of our ancestors coming down. Back in caveman days, there was no EPT pregnancy test. In caveman times, if you had sex with someone and you didn't stay and bond with them like we do with the oxytocin, the love and bonding hormones, and we have the honeymoon phase, if you didn't do that, you could go back off into the wilderness and be the bad bitch or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you're pregnant. And how are you gonna survive in nature and be pregnant? How are you gonna deliver a baby and not have other animals or anything attacking you?
Yeah.
How are you gonna provide for that baby and get food? You have to have those bonding hormones. This is my thought.
Yeah, such a wild thought.
People want to stick with someone long enough to see if, then find out we've missed some periods and, oh my goodness, we're pregnant. I need to be with this person so that we'll survive.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have that.
We underestimate.
So whenever I was in my Samantha phase, I'm thinking, I'm not catching feelings. I'm not catching feelings.
That's the quote,
but
right?
Now that I've become trauma informed and looked at things, I'm like, was associating. Because my biology is releasing hormones for me to connect with this person.
Right.
So be aware of who you connect with, because then all of a sudden the red flags turn orange when you've had some orgasms and made love with someone.
Oh, that's
and then you don't see.
Concept. Yeah.
Oh.
And then they're like, why didn't I? Why didn't I see it? And it's, if you're in your ego, you certainly won't see it, right? Because if you're in your ego, all you're focused on is mitigating your own fears about your own presence or performance in that situation. Let's talk about some tips and tools, maybe, so people can figure out, maybe how to get started on the idea of, am I in my ego? Where am I coming from? Thinking about tools and tips for engagement in somebody's life. It's such a massive and deep conversation and topic. I want to do 4 more episodes because I feel like this is just all right, I'm going to introduce it. We're going to scratch the surface and we're going to talk about these concepts, right?
No, this is totally just a start.
Because some of those concepts, right? If people hear that and they hear that they're in their ego and they hear that I don't need no man, or I'm Samantha from Sex and the City, which they just released a whole new series, which is concerning to me. But just hearing that and people using those ideas to keep themselves safe in the world, they keep themselves safe that way by latching on to these constructs that's accepted by the rest of society, right? So the rest of society is, yes, we support you in this Cardi B loving WAP world, right? We support, but how could you, if somebody's just entering the process to even start thinking about this in a different way, what's a tool or a tip or a resource that they could use to just start even peeking into this topic? Because it's once you get in, me and Dominique talked when we first connected. I could have talked to you for 3 days. It was so wonderful in that first meeting and just having these conversations. But if you want to get started, what's a one way to peek in?
Great question. One thing I want to say is Cardi B also is in a relationship with a man. So it's not that they're not in a relationship. And we are relational beings. We were meant to be in community and to be around other people. Yeah. We do need that.
Yeah.
So just to be aware of that. But when I first discovered Tantra, I took the time to just start to date myself for a while. And ego is not something to villainize or make wrong. Our ego is even part of our survival. Yes. So not to make it good or bad, but just know, why was that showing up for me like that? How was I trying to keep myself safe and give that part of myself a different role in my life, of another way that it could keep me safe? And then just going into having a really healthy relationship with yourself and knowing what is it that I truly want? Can you consciously date yourself? If you're single, can you consciously date yourself and treat yourself the way you would want a lover to treat you? And romance yourself. Like, you will magnetize that to you more quickly if you start to do that for yourself. It's when we don't feel like we're worthy of it, or we don't resource ourselves in these ways, and we're always searching for someone else. Or like that little story when we're kids, are you my mother? And we're like, are you the one? Are you the one? Are you the one? And then we're just like so starving for something. So resource yourself, get to know yourself, and really think about what are the beliefs or the programming. I love that book by Don Miguel Ruiz, The Four Agreements.
Yeah.
Because it's like, all right, how much of our programming or what you think would be a great relationship or what your goals have been, or based on watching Disney or what your parents have told you, what is your truth? What is it that you really want? Like, maybe you don't want a conventional marriage, or maybe you don't want it to be this way. Like, really get to know what your heart desires and be curious with that, and just love on yourself so much. Because when you have a lot of self-love, I like to imagine like a teacup with a saucer. What you want to do is, and it's almost like the airplane analogy of put your oxygen mask on first. You want to fill your cup up with your self-love practices, with loving yourself.
Right.
And what you give to someone else is the overflow from the cup. So often in our world, we're giving when we only have a few drops in our cup. And what that is creating is resentment.
Yeah.
That's not true loving.
Right.
So what you do is whatever is spilling out from our cup into the saucer, that's what you share with other people. Yeah. So having healthy boundaries. Remember, every time you're saying yes to someone else, you're saying no to yourself. So where do you continue to deny yourself? Start to care for yourself and be really true to yourself. Love on yourself. Have amazing pleasure with yourself. And begin to let go of shame about those things, and just find out what your truth is. All she cared about with men was if they were, how good looking they were. And so that's why I would look at all the time. That's why I was dating models in LA. It's really a lot of programming from my mom about, oh, what do they look like? And then if they didn't have looks, well, then did they have money?
Right.
And then I wonder why I didn't pick out the best dads to have children with, because I wasn't taught about what qualities to look for in a partner. So what you really want to do is look at your values and think, what type of person would I want to be with? And do I embody those values? Do I have these things? Because it attracts like. So just starting to love on yourself and create that within your world, and you're going to start to attract that, because it's like law of attraction. And Tantra really helps you with that, because you get really clear, one, on who you are. You're really loving yourself, and you're not feeling so needy for everything. And you're just like, and then you can have a place of clarity. You meditate, you're more dropped in and connected to your truth. And you can think, okay, does that serve me or not? Do I want to do that or not? Does that mean you're going to continue to be perfect? No, no one's perfect. We're here having human experience.
Yeah.
Have I not made mistakes in dating since Tantra? Of course I have. Like, life keeps lifing, but then I can continue to come back to the practice and know and have it help me. So I took a period of, when I first learned Tantra, doing practices, white Tantra, pink Tantra, a lot of things that I share in my 12 Days to Self-Love ebook. I started doing those things because I used to jump from relationship to relationship. And then I was like, all right, let me see what patterns are here. What is continuing to repeat? What about me continues to attract that or to entertain that? And let me work on healing that aspect of me so that I can start to approach relationships in a different way and attract something different and start to have a different experience. Because Einstein says the definition of insanity is doing things the same way and expecting a different result.
And if that isn't the primary quote that people say in relationships these days. Yep, 100%.
But it's just all like that love that you have for yourself. So just how much can you love on yourself, and be really clear, and don't tolerate things that are toxic for you, because we can get a lot of codependent patterns. It was interesting statistic that 95% of adults received inadequate parenting, and our parents just didn't get good parenting either from their parents. This stuff, it just got passed down. And so just knowing that. So if you're dating someone and they're not even in any kind of therapy or coaching or anything, I mean, because life is a traumatic experience. Our first trauma is if we were born in a hospital. That's the first traumatic experience that you have. You may not recall it.
He's just figuring this out just now. Your trauma is not unique. So just being aware of that, and then just getting tools. And it doesn't have to be Tantra, like having a therapist, whatever resonates with you. Well, and that's what I was wondering too, is like, if people don't know, if you're asking somebody to love themselves or look inside or ask what they truly want, if you don't know, then, and take an inventory of what you are doing. Take a look at what is happening. If you're not quite ready or don't really understand how to see those other elements, the other aspects that could be filling up that cup, right? Look at what space is being taken up and take some inventory. And if it isn't fulfilling, and if it doesn't make you feel, I want to say like open, warm, compassionate, at peace, like that nervous system response of just being like that feeling. And if you don't know what I'm feeling, I'm talking about, then then even call Dominique, because you need to be able to experience that feeling in your life. Then figure out like what is happening and identify what's not working. And I guarantee there are some constructs coming in there. I guarantee there's some conditioning, there's some messaging, there's some of these things that you've been basing your reality off of that probably isn't serving you well, like Dominique said. And pick up Dominique's ebook, I would say, for starters, at a minimum. Dominique, where can they find you? They can follow you on Instagram. I know they took down your other Instagram account, which is absolutely bullshit,
now my Instagram for now is DVita, DVITA, and then my website is yestantra.com.
Yep.
They took down your
I'm going to have links to more of my courses there. I have a lot of masterclass replays. I have an intro to Tantra.
Wonderful. Okay.
Online course, and I have masterclass replays about the 9+ types of female orgasms, male stamina in the bedroom, how to last longer.
Amazing.
And then my coaching. I have group coaching for women. I just launched my first group coaching for men, and I do one-on-one coaching as well. But I really love working with men because there's so much pressure in our modern world on men, and they're just like, oh, you need to be the protector, the provider, the strong one. Mm-hmm. And they can be so disconnected from their emotions. And then when they enter relationships, women long for that emotional connection. But growing up, men are like, oh, you're sad? Big boys don't cry. Are you going to cry? I'll give you something to cry about. So they've been conditioned, and they're comfortable connecting with is anger. Then they enter a relationship with a woman that they love, and they don't really know how to articulate or how to feel into those emotions because they've stayed disconnected for so long.
Yep.
So I really love creating a safe space for men, because a lot of men have wounds around the feminine. A lot of men have the mother wound, and create a safe space where they can really be heard and share tools with them and help them understand too what women want by decoding. Because I understand from a female perspective, just supporting them, because if I don't share this with men, like, who are the women going to be with? And it was because of a man that I had the experience with Tantra that I had my whole awakening, and it changed my entire life. So it was a man with these skills that changed me radically.
Yep. I love that. And I love that you bring that into focus, because I feel like we are so hard on the men these days. We're so hard, and we put all these expectations on them, and they already had that pressure on them to begin with. And to create a space where they can come have just some breathing room to be seen in their masculine energy or even in their feminine energy, right? Like, to just have that available to them is absolutely amazing. We should do a whole episode. You're gonna have to come in the studio though. Screw this virtual. We're gonna get you up here, and we'll do a much longer, more in-depth podcast episode, maybe on energies. It'd be awesome. I really appreciate that you took the time to come on, because I think this topic, it's so important, and it's shamed, and it's not discussed in good ways, right? It's not discussed well or in depth. And I highly encourage listeners, supporters out there to go check out Yes Tantra, because she clearly has a wealth of knowledge. Not only that, but a wealth of resources that you can start peeking into the world of Tantra and really getting in touch with yourselves. And I really think that would make the world a better place. Just saying. So thank you so much for the work that you do too.
Thank you so much. If you can start to be love and have love for yourself, when you start to have this love and compassion, you have that more for the people around you, because our world is so filled with fear and with hate and with bullying and all of these things.
Disconnection.
And whenever you have this, when you're connected and you realize we're more alike than not alike.
Totally.
Part of the things being this way, I really want to have a new beginning. What if you tapped into the power of your sexual energy? Because that's the energy that brought you into existence to begin with. So wouldn't it make sense to connect back to that energy and hit the reset button and recreate what you want out of your life? You don't just have to create a human life with this energy. You can create the life that your heart desires by connecting to this energy. It is literally your power source, and it can increase your vitality and make you totally unstoppable and tap into your creative genius. It is not an accident that society has us feeling shame about such a powerful part of ourselves, because we are easier to control and manipulate as humans if we feel shame about the thing that can empower us the most. And that's why I'm super passionate about sharing this. And I definitely would love to have a longer conversation with you about this, Kristen. This was really
amazing.
Great today. So thank you.
Totally want to do that. Yeah. Mike's on board too. I think we might have cracked him. I think he's interested now. I think we got him on board. You can lead the path for the men in your life too. You can lead by example. It'll be amazing.
Yes. They need that.
No ego there at all. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Dominique. I really appreciate it. We'd love to have you back. And I will drop all of Dominique's resources into the description on YouTube. Until next time, we'll see you when we see you. If you're having a mental health emergency, we urge you to dial the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-8255 or text the crisis text line. Text HOME to 741-741.